Welcome to the Football Word. I am Doug Kyed. This is Zack. We are on day 2 of the NFL Scouting Combine. On Monday, we looked at offensive positions the Patriots should be looking for in the draft at the Combine. Today, we will be focusing on defensive positions. I believe that edge rusher, pass rusher, is the most important defensive position the Patriots need to address. And the draft this year kind of feels like it's 2011 all over again. Patriots really did kind of address this need in the last few years. But now they're pretty light at that position. They only have Trey Flowers, Geno Grissom, and Rob Ninkovich on their roster. I guess you could throw Shea McClellan into that mix as well. But that's definitely the position that I think that, whether it's a first-round need, second-round need, it needs to be addressed early in the draft this year.
Absolutely. I mean, that's really what people talked about all season. I think that was the biggest complaint about this defense was that it was not getting to the quarterback enough. And I think that was a little bit overblown a tad, but if you look, you have Trey Flowers who had 7 sacks, but other than that, he was really the only player who could generate consistent pressure on the quarterback this season. And now they're going to have a lot of turnover at that position no matter what. And Chris Long already announced that he will not return next season. He wants to seek a bigger role elsewhere. Jabal Sheard's another free agent. Who knows if he'll be back next year. And this class should have some very, very talented edge rushers, pass rushers. So it should be pretty exciting to see both at the Combine and later at the draft.
Yeah, definitely. And I do not expect Sheard to be back. I think that that's kind of the well-held belief at this point, especially given the fact that he was benched for a little bit there. He didn't turn into that starting pass rusher that the Patriots wanted him to be.
Half of the year, yeah.
Exactly. So I think that it will probably be Trey Flowers and Rob Ninkovich as the starters again next year, but they need those depth pieces. And as you said, there are some good names out there. Charles Harris, Alabama's Tim Williams, Auburn's Carl Lawson, UCLA's Takaris McKinley, Alabama's Ryan Anderson, Wisconsin's TJ Watt. I think that the guy that they're looking for in the draft this year, or the guy that they should be looking for, is that guy who can play on the edge but also kind of drop back into coverage, because they already have Trey Flowers who can be that edge guy and also kick inside on those sub packages to rush from the inside. So they need the other type of versatile guy who can drop back into coverage a little bit more. And those names I mentioned are probably those types of players. In college, a lot of guys aren't asked to do both rushing the passer and dropping back into coverage. But Patriots aren't going to be asking this guy to drop back into coverage 30 or 40 times a game. It's probably going to be 5 or 10 times a game. They just need him to possess that ability.
Yeah, it's more about having the ability to do so rather than having that be your primary focus. But I mean, we all know how much Bill Belichick values versatility in all of his players, especially on defense.
Absolutely. And I guess one interesting name out there, one that I mentioned, is TJ Watt. I actually watched him a little bit. He plays a little funny out there. He almost plays like JJ Watt, but he's 50 pounds lighter, so it's kind of odd to see. He was very productive with Wisconsin last year, but he's a pretty highly regarded prospect, first or second round. I'm not sure if it'll actually wind up going that way, and if it is, maybe it's just because he's JJ Watt's brother. Brother has another initial name, so it's you basically feel like you're getting JJ Watt at a lower weight. What's the other position that you think Patriots should be looking for in the draft this year?
Well, unlike on offense where they're pretty set at a lot of positions, really on defense this is going to depend on who they bring back in free agency because they really have an impact free agent at every spot around the defense. I mean, if they lose Alan Branch, maybe they need a guy, a defensive tackle. They lose Dante Hightower, they need a linebacker. They lose either of those 2 cornerbacks, they're going to need a cornerback. Right now, though, I'm looking at safety just because I'm really intrigued by some of the safety prospects in this class. If the Patriots lose Duron Harmon, who was their 3rd safety this year, basically their 5th starting defensive back because he played so much. He was such an important part of that team. If they lose him, then the drop from Devin McCourty, Patrick Chung, to whoever is below that is a very significant drop. I mean, after that, you're looking at Jordan Richards, who really hasn't panned out as anything since the Patriots drafted him in the 2nd round 2 years ago. And then Nate Ebner, who's a fantastic special teams player, but really doesn't play much at all on the defensive side. So I can definitely see them going that direction, especially if Hardman leaves, they're going to have to bring in a new safety. But even if he doesn't, I can see them bringing in a guy there. And the name that everybody's talking about is Jabril Peppers. I've seen him mocked to the Patriots in dozens of mock drafts. It seems like he has, we talked about versatility. This is probably the most versatile player in the draft. I was watching some tape on him the other day, and in one game he lined up like deep cover 2 safety, lined up almost as a pass rushing defensive end, lined up off the line linebacker, was covering guys in the slot. And on top of that, he's a kick returner and can play offense too. He can play all over the field. There is a concern that he might be kind of a classic tweener guy where he's good at a lot of stuff but not elite at anything, so that could be a bit of an issue, especially if you're looking to use a first-round pick on a kind of guy like that. But another guy that I'm kind of interested in, maybe not for the Patriots, but just in general, is the safety for UConn. Obi, we're going to apologize. These people are going to get mad at us because we're going to keep messing up everybody's name. But Obi Melifonwu,
something like that.
Obi Melifonwu, we'll go with that. He's a really interesting player because he's 6'4", almost 220, which is huge, which is big for a safety. And there's been talk that teams might consider moving him to cornerback at the NFL. And you don't see any NFL cornerbacks who are 6'4", 220.
Basically just Brandon Browner. He's
Pretty
the
much.
only one in recent history.
Yeah, and which could make the Patriots interested in him. Obviously, the versatility kind of thing, and they could be weak at corner, both with. I mean, even if the I doubt they will bring back both Malcolm Butler and Logan Ryan.
Yeah.
They're gonna have a need at that position. They got a lot of youth there. He's a guy that could kind of contribute to both, but. We'll see. I'm excited to see what they bring at the Combine.
Definitely. Washington's Buda Baker is another player who I think they could be interested in. Alabama's Eddie Jackson, who's coming off an injury. Utah, Marcus Williams.
Yeah. Then you get the top dogs like Malik Hooker, Jamal Adams. That'll probably be gone long before the Patriots will draft, unless they draft.
And the other thing at safety is, not to get too deep into the weeds at safety, Patrick Chung did take a slight step back this season as the Patriots' strong safety. So they might be looking for a versatile player who can play both strong safety and free safety, just in case Deron Harmon leaves, in case Patrick Chung takes another step back. Chung and McCourty are both, getting a little bit more up there in age, so that's certainly a position that they do need much more youth, versatility, depth at, because Jordan Richards really panned out so far, even worse than Tavon Wilson did, as far as second-round surprise safeties that the Patriots have taken in recent drafts. Let's move on to Jimmy Garoppolo. The report yesterday on Wednesday was that Patriots are not going to trade him. The first wording from the Adam Schefter tweet was that they are not expected to trade him. Then he went on ESPN SportsCenter and kind of doubled down a little bit, was a little bit more, specific in his wording that they weren't going to trade him. Then he was even more specific in his wording on WEI that this is a guy who will be on the Patriots roster next season. I don't know. I think at first a lot of people were looking at this report as just a negotiating tactic for the Patriots, that, okay, well, if they're not expected to trade him, then that means that the trade offers that they're receiving from other teams are not good enough. But the fact that Schefter, who really is the most respected reporter out there as far as NFL news goes, the fact that he's doubling down and that his wording is so strong on this, that he will be on the Patriots, I think you have to take it seriously that the Patriots really do want to keep Garoppolo, and that unless they're getting some sort of crazy deal, like say the Browns offer them the number 1 overall pick and another first rounder, it seems like he'll probably be on the Patriots next year.
Yeah, I mean, we've been hearing the same kind of report for a couple weeks now of people saying we really don't think that the Patriots will trade Jimmy Garoppolo. But just like you said, the way how authoritative Schefter was with this. I mean, he doubled down and then tripled down. Yeah. The fact that he truly does not believe that Garoppolo will be traded, and he's not a kind of guy who's going to stake his reputation on some kind of negotiation ploy. So I mean, yeah, as of right now, it looks like Jimmy Garoppolo will be on the team next year. Which, as we talked about earlier, it won't really cause too many problems for this year. Right. He's still under contract. He can play as a backup, same amount of money, all that good stuff. But then once he hit 2018. All bets are off, man. I don't know. It's going to get crazy next summer if they keep him around.
Oh, absolutely, because they would have to franchise him to keep him around, and they can franchise him 2 seasons in a row like the Redskins did to Kirk Cousins. But then you're talking about a 27, 28-year-old quarterback that, excuse me, how long does this guy want to keep staying as a backup to Tom Brady? I mean, it really is crazy.
Yeah, and he said that he wants to play, too. He spoke with Schefter in a podcast a couple weeks back. He said, didn't really come out and say, I want a starting job, but he was like, hey, you're a competitor, you want to play, you don't want to sit on the bench for 6 years.
It also creates a quarterback controversy at some point here where, Tom Brady, if he even takes a small step back and they still have Jimmy Garoppolo on the roster, then you're talking about, all right, which one are they going to go with at some certain season? So
with Tom Brady, he's going to take a step back at some point. Yeah. With how competitive he is, if he continues to play at this level, he's just going to continue to keep playing. Yeah. But there's going to be a point where he's going to want to keep playing and the team's not going to want to let him. So.
And
I guess in that case, it's good to have Garoppolo on your side, but who knows when that's going to be.
Right, and further complicating matters is that apparently the Patriots and Tom Brady are working on another contract extension. That's the report out there from the Boston Herald's Jeff Howe. So, I mean, how long can you keep two high-priced quarterbacks?
You're going to have 3 quarterbacks on the roster again next year, and maybe in the future after that. It's a wild situation.
It is a wild situation, and really, I mean, who knows what the Patriots are going to do. I think that they're really the only ones at this point who do know what they're going to do. Moving on to Bill Belichick, the guy who started a chant of no days off. NFL Combine started on Wednesday, and Bill Belichick was still in Boston at the Celtics-Cavs game, and he almost had to potentially take a longer break from football activities when LeBron James nearly trucked him on the court. LeBron James said that he knew his surroundings. He had some spatial awareness there, knew that Bill Belichick was in front of him, tried to slow down as much as he could. If LeBron James actually did truck Bill Belichick, would LeBron James supplant Roger Goodell as the biggest villain in Boston sports right now?
He would be up there. But I think Bill can hold his own.
Yeah.
I think he's just the aura about him. You saw LeBron come flying at him, and it was actually kind of funny. You see him, he just runs over this cameraman, and then he's like, oh man, it's Bill. And then he just does this little slide out of the way.
Yeah.
And after the game, he was like, I knew he was here. He said I wasn't gonna run over a legend or something like that.
Yeah.
But I mean, hey, maybe Belichick should put in a word. They can use a pass rusher, maybe even a new tight end.
Very true. I think that LeBron, on offense, I think tight end, wide receiver would probably be his best position. Edge rusher or
Might have
linebacker.
to bulk up a little bit, but
bulk up a little bit. But I think he could play linebacker. He could fill in for Dante Hightower.
Yeah.
Be that versatile guy who can cover, rush, stop the run. So
sign him up.
Yeah, I think the Patriots definitely could use him. Let's get into two questions from this week's mailbag. We did talk about edge rushers earlier, but Kevin Wilson asks, how many edge players do the Patriots need between the draft and free agency? We did say earlier that they only have Trey Flowers, Geno Grissom, and Rob Ninkovich on their roster right now. It doesn't appear as though they're going to bring back Jabal Sheard. Chris Long already said that he's not returning, so I'm looking at 3 or 4 here, honestly, because for training camp, you've got a 90-man roster. You need all the players you can get. So I say they draft one, maybe sign 1 or 2, and then bring in the undrafted free agent or whatever you have. Jared Odrick is an interesting name that's out there. He reportedly worked out for the Patriots, and I think that he's not a traditional edge rusher, but he's a guy who can play on the edge, play some defensive tackle. I think he could kind of fill that Chris Long role from last year because Long is known as an edge rusher, but he was playing inside a lot last year as both a 5-technique defensive end and a 3-technique defensive tackle. And that's part of the reason why he wants to move on and find a new role, because that's not really his best role. That would be Jared Odrick's best role for the Patriots.
Yeah, he's kind of a bigger guy. He's not. He's a different body type than Long. He looks more like a defensive tackle than a defensive end. But I agree with you. I mean, they're gonna, especially since Geno Grissom has really been mainly a special teamer.
Yeah.
He hasn't.
You can't count on Geno Grissom.
Yeah, you can't count on him, pencil him into the defensive depth chart at all. I mean, maybe he makes a leap. He's a talented player, but really right now you're looking at 2 legitimate defensive players.
And maybe
in that.
McClellan.
And maybe McClellan, but McClellan plays mostly linebacker. And right now they're pretty light at linebacker too. So it's not like they have tremendous depth in this defense, especially in the front 7.
Absolutely. Second question here. Do you think the Patriots will go extremely heavy on defense at the draft, especially if we lose Hightower, Ryan, Sheard, and Branch? Yeah, basically. I mean, as we've been saying the last 2 shows here, Patriots don't have a ton of needs on offense. They don't need a quarterback if they're not going to trade Jimmy Garoppolo. They don't really need a wide receiver, maybe a slot receiver for the future. Don't really need offensive line help, so you're really only looking at running back and tight end. So I think that they will probably go pretty heavy on defense here.
I mean, yeah, that's definitely where their needs are. I do think it will depend slightly on some of their free agents on offense, whether LeGarrette Blount's back, whether Martellus Bennett's back. But I think that'll affect their decision-making at the top of the draft. I'm not sure where they're going to go in the first round, second round, whether they're going to go tight end, go running back, or go pass. I think I agree with you that edge rusher is their biggest need, but they might be able to get a player there. That class is supposedly very deep this year, so they might be able to get a quality player in second or third round. But yeah, I mean, I think their focus is definitely on the defense, which is kind of funny because considering that their defense finished first in the NFL in points allowed last season. But yeah, I think the offense is definitely more stable at the moment than the defense is.
I would say if there's a surprise position that the Patriots might take earlier than some people might expect, it might be an offensive tackle. Obviously, they've got Nate Solder and Marcus Cannon as their top 2 guys there, but they're always looking for that swing tackle. I think that they could probably improve that position from Cameron Fleming, who served as that swing tackle last season. And you might be looking at a couple of years down the road them needing to, maybe move on from Nate Solder. I don't think they're going to be moving on from Marcus Cannon anytime soon since he just signed the extension. But it never hurts to have a young offensive tackle in there because those guys can move around a little bit. He could be that sixth offensive lineman / third tight end. He could be a guard potentially. So I think that's a position that they could address.
Yeah, that's a good call. I mean, Fleming is a restricted free agent this year. Then Nate Solder is scheduled to hit free agency next year. He'll be getting up there in years by that point. I mean, he had a great season this year. He really bounced back after a couple disappointing injury-riddled seasons before. But yeah, he's going to be a free agent next year. There could be. It depends on what they want to do with Cameron Fleming. I think they can. Fleming's a decent player, but I think they can easily replace him with a younger, maybe relatively high draft pick if they want to, and then kind of plan for the future. But I mean, they're in good shape from a starter's position on that offensive line. I don't think that you're really going to see any movement along the starting five there, but they can definitely shake up the depth a little if they want to.
And offensive tackle is a position that you usually want to address early in the draft rather than later because those players are so hard to find. It's tough to find a 6'6" guy who can move well enough to play offensive tackle and
who can get the NFL
weigh
scheme
300 pounds
too.
and get the
a
NFL
lot of
scheme.
times those college schemes are so much simpler for those linemen.
Definitely, yeah. It's a position the Patriots usually don't have many practice squad guys on because you just don't find those types of players at the end of the draft. So that will do it for today's version of the football word. We will be back with you on Monday. That's when the NFL Scouting Combine is wrapping up. So we'll be able to talk about some of the workouts that some players had, some guys that the Patriots might be interested based on that. So be sure to tune in on Monday.